Hey everyone, Joel here with Dissecting DIY, and today I wanted to go over some problems that I've kind of had with Tesla. Really unfortunate because if you know me, I love Tesla. I love Elon Musk's vision. I love everything he's been able to do. He basically came from nothing, um, and he created PayPal. I don't know a person today that doesn't utilize PayPal or that whole banking service. And then he went on to create the first Roadster. And in about 2005, 2007, they came out. They released information on the Model S. You know, this guy just basically reads on how to do stuff and then goes out and does it. It's amazing. And then he figured out how to build a factory, especially in a climate like California, which is, for lack of a better word, is just like a nightmare to do business, and the taxes, and it really hinders business. That's why everyone's leaving to get to Texas, because the business environment is more friendly. And Elon Musk has even stated he's the last vehicle manufacturer in California. So it's crazy what that guy is able to do. And then, of course, he created SpaceX, and then he releases the Model X, the gull-wing doors, really stylish vehicles. Then later on, he came out with the Model 3. And of course, there's a pattern here is, most of these announcements, the Model S, there was a lead time on announcement. Hey, we're going to come out with a Model S. A couple years later, they start, actually rolling off the floor and delivering. Same thing with the Model X, Model 3, the Model Y, the Cybertruck. And then, of course, there's their Powerwalls. They did the same thing. Hey, we're going to come out with this thing called the Powerwall. Year lead time, six months to a year, I think. I don't remember that far back, so don't quote me. I'm, of course, paraphrasing or trying to go from memory. So, but there was always a lead time. Whether it was the Powerwall 1, you tried to get that. I remember back in 2016, I said, hey, I want the Powerwall. And Solar City, who was out at the time, said, yeah, we're not installing them yet. No one has them. So, they're still on the manufacturing floor. Then the Powerwall 2 came out, and I said, hey, I want the Powerwall 2. And, of course, they were like, yeah, they haven't released yet. So, there's always this thing, there's this pattern with Tesla that says, we're going to be releasing something. Then there was the solar roof. The solar roof will come out in 2019, 2020, years before on the announcement. So it doesn't appear to be an Osborne effect here. So I want to bring up the Osborne effect, because the Osborne effect is essentially where a company will release product information when they have a previous product. So basically you're like, yeah, we got this great thing coming out, and everyone's like, oh, well, I want that thing. I don't want that. I'm not going to spend money on that. Tesla seems immune to this. And it really shows. So like every aspect of Tesla is about the announcement. It's like the iPhone thing. Everyone knows a certain day. We know that the iPhone's coming out, and next year there's going to be an iPhone 13, or whatever they're going to call it. We know that there's going to be a release, and that's kind of what Tesla's kind of portrayed itself to be. Is this company that is like Apple, where hey, check out this product. It's going to be available, and they do a little bit different, where it's like, instead of a few months lead time, it's like years. Like the Cybertruck, you're not going to be able to get that thing till 2021, 2022 for the tri-motor. Okay, same thing with the Model X, Y. They've got years in advance. The version 3 solar roof, or the solar roof in general, didn't start getting it installed until I think this year, at least in my area. I'm in the New Hampshire area. They could have been doing it along the Sun Belt. I don't know. But there was years lead time on that. That being said, when I entered into the sales process with Tesla Energy, I asked them point blank. I said, I've had a couple companies out. I had Revision out. They have a 360 watt panel. I would like to go with a panel that large. And they said, hey, you know what? We only do a 315 watt panel. I said, that's a problem, because that isn't even on the low end of your competitor. Like your low end is on your competitor is a 325 rec, a rec 325. What do you have? Well, we have the QLED 315. I said, that's not enough. So then I go, are you guys planning to upgrade anytime soon? In the next couple of months, within the next year, within the next couple of years, are you guys planning to upgrade that panel? My sales rep Pedro said, unfortunately, we're not planning on upgrading anytime soon. So I know that Tesla doesn't release any new product information unless it's years in advance. I know that. Based on their current model, it doesn't matter if it's their vehicles, their roofs, or their power walls. They, as a business, always release information on new products years in advance. So I'm sitting here talking to my sales rep going, that's unfortunate. I know that they haven't released anything. I asked the sales rep. He's stating the same thing. I'm looking at least 2 to 3, maybe 4 years minimum before this company decides to do anything with their solar panels. I know that they're going to be pushing the solar roof. And that they're going to be, they really kind of, and I even said this in my last video, they kind of neglected their solar panel portion. So I know this based on the company's actions. I then asked Pedro, I said, can you ask your manager? Yes, I will ask my manager. So of course I call him again. I said, did you ask your manager? And he said, yeah, look, the same thing, the 315 watt. And then of course he goes through his sales pitch that he's supposed to go through. This is a great looking panel. It's all black. It goes well with our trim system, and it works really well with our mounting puck system. Okay. All right. So I have to make a decision based on that. And, you know, so we're proceeding. And of course, panels, you know, once you start the sales process, you know, they're going to, here, I'll move it down here. Once you start the sales process, of course, they're going to give you the model what they would like to do, right? They'd like to put all those panels on your roof. This is 36 panels right here. This is an ideal situation, right? Well, sometimes, whether it's, you know, the way the roof is constructed, maybe you got 2x4s, maybe you got 2x6s that are 24 inches on, 24 inches on center as opposed to 16 inches on center. You know, just maybe the roof isn't up to par. Or maybe the pitch, you know, this roof's fine, but in my situation, this roof is considered a flat roof. They rely on the way that the water travels down the roof to make sure that it's going to keep going, so it doesn't cause leaks, it doesn't cause hassles, basically things for them to repair and take responsibility for. That's wise. So, of course, panels started coming off my place fairly quickly. And I went from, I believe we were close to, let's see, I think we had like 26 panels originally. Now I have 21. Or it was 27, so there was like 4 extra panels, and then of course on the roof. So we had to do some finagling, and then of course because we moved this panel to the front, when I have sun coming in the back all year, lowered my power generation. So they do two things. They see how the sun is going to power, and then there's the total strength of the system. So they do that by taking all the panels, multiplying how much panels are there and how many kilowatts you could potentially get. And then of course there's the sunlight hours of how many sunlight hours you're going to get during peak, which is during the season, probably July, I think is the day where the sun is the highest or stays in the sky the longest. And then of course in the winter where it's the lowest in the sky, where you get the reduced hours, probably like 8 to 9 as opposed to 15, 16 hours. So that was one of the things they considered. So my panel generation dropped down to, and originally we were going to go with like a 12 kilowatt system in the very beginning, where we were, like the front and the back were loaded, and that quickly dropped to like 8, then 7, then 6.6. So they kind of stopped calling me, and I called them up and I said, hey, what's going on here? Like, you know, the sales process is dead in the water. And they go, oh yeah, did you know it was going to only produce this much? I said, well, no, you didn't call me to let me know, but now that I do know, I said, you know, it's kind of my decision to make. I kind of wish you told me. And I said, and this is why I want a more powerful panel. I go, so you're telling me I shouldn't go, you know, that I am going to get too low power generation, and you just stopped calling. Like, this is why you need to offer like a 315 watt at this price point, 325 watt at this price point, and 360. I go, this is what your competitors do. Again, I got the spiel about the panels. Oh, they're black panels. They're nice, you know. And I said, look, I don't care how my panels look. I go, if I'm concerned about look, I'll go with the solar roof. And then I tried joking around with them, making a little light, and I said, you know the Cybertruck. You know how everyone doesn't like the look at that, and you guys say, it'll grow on you. The Cybertruck is going to grow on you. It's kind of growing on me. Every single Tesla ride. I didn't like it at first either, but you know, having to look at the damn thing now hung up on posters and advertisements everywhere around the place that this is what we need to push, it's kind of growing on me. It's like, yeah, I'd probably grow on me too after having it in my face all the time. You know, and they laughed, and then, you know, I'm joking with them, and I go, look, you tell people with the Cybertruck, it'll grow on you. I go, I don't care if you put panels on my roof and there's a picture of Homer Simpson eating a donut on those things. I go, the whole point of solar panels is max power generation. It is to produce the maximum amount. I go, so if it's got, silver grids and blue, and I don't care. I just need it to produce the maximum amount of wattage at a good price per watt. And they're laughing. I go, so tell people with solar panels, they'll grow on you. And, so once we got through that, it's like, this is what we're offering. And I go, look, I need, again, are you guys planning on upgrading anytime soon? No, we're not. Check with your manager. Check with my manager. No, we're not. Now, he could have been like, I'll check with my manager. Here's his phone. He'll be like, yeah, hold on. I gotta play some solitaire real quick. Right? Okay. Yeah. Oh, I gotta deal with some stuff from home. Oh, the babysitter canceled. I'm gonna have to deal with that. All right. Yeah, sir. Yeah, I checked with my manager, and they're just unavailable. So something like that could have taken place. That happens quite frequently a lot if you've ever worked in that area. Like, everyone kind of treats everyone like a Karen. The customer is always right. The Karens have really ruined that. And now they treat everyone like they're just this unreasonable person asking for unreasonable things. And people are also put in positions where they can't critically think. The policy is the policy. This is what you tell the customer. You get the manager. The manager reiterates what the lower guy said. There's none of that extenuating circumstance anymore. It's really ruined business, especially if you're a big company. There's no accommodation. And Tesla used to be really good with that. If you watch YouTube channels from the past, Tesla would used to go above and beyond to fix issues because it was the right thing to do. That isn't really happening here. So keep in mind, I've just told you, I have kind of drove this point home with Tesla. I want better panels. I would prefer to wait for better panels. If you're going to be releasing better panels within the next year, 2 years, 3 years, I would like to wait and pay for the better panel. Again, I'm going to pay for it. I'm not asking something for nothing. This is just what I want as a customer. And they assured me, no, we're not planning to upgrade. Now remember, Tesla releases product information years in advance. I, as a customer, know this. I know that Tesla will not proceed unless they've done a product announcement. So proceeding with that, I have to make a decision. I know that Tesla hasn't announced any new panels. I know that I at least have a year before, when they do announce these new panels, that that's what I'm going to have to wait in order to even get them, and them to actually get enough stock, and for them to build up nationwide and be able to distribute them properly. That all takes time. So I know that if Pedro is telling me that there's no plans to do that, that I've got quite a long time ahead of me, and I have a decision to make now. Do I want to go with this lower watt system despite what I want not being met? So I made that decision with COVID-19. I said, if power goes out, or if the people aren't at the power plants, and we're starting to get brownouts like California. Like, California is like a crazy thing where the government actually said, yeah, you can't have power. So I live in a very green state, and green happens to be synonymous with we can shut you down anytime we want. So that scared me, and I said, I want to make sure that I can keep my food cold. I want to make sure I can keep my kids warm. I want to make sure that I can keep them cool. These were big factors for me, and it kind of scared me, and I said, you know what? I talked to my wife, and I said, I would rather have power some of the day than none of the day, and based on the readings that we're getting, and I think it would be a wise purchase to make. It's not the production we want, but they've assured me that they're not going to do any panel releases. So now, Joel, get to the point. What are you talking about? What did Tesla do to you? Well, I installed in late June. I think it was June 19th. I think in July, the system went online. And I think about August or September, Tesla upgraded their solar panel from 315 watts to 340. They actually revamped their whole site. This is all new. This it wasn't like this, what you're looking at. So of course here, no visible grid, low profile, ooh. That's what the solar roof is for. Power walls. Love power walls. I still love power walls. And then of course there's this digital render. This looks great. I liked all this. So I'm like flipping through because I'm a fanboy. I'm like, I love Tesla. I love seeing the improvements they make. So, I keep up to date. I'm like, oh, this is great. I was planning on making new videos and saying, look what Tesla did. And then I get to this page, 340 watts. You remember my last video, 315. Dimensions changed, a little bit heavier of a panel, right? But something my roof can handle. I specifically asked them, point blank, if they were planning on upgrading. Now, Tesla, the corporate heads, whether they knew, they by omission. So it is a lie of omission, where corporate didn't advise their lower staff. So then, of course, now I'm mad because I really drove this point home. I really made it clear. And I know that Tesla doesn't do any product releases unless it's years in advance, or product announcements unless it's years in advance. I knew that I had a lead time and that I had to make a decision today because of the circumstances of the world. Did I act hastily? Sure. Sure, you could argue that. You could argue that I let what was going on in the world get to me and I made a hasty decision based on it. Not Tesla's fault. That's not Tesla's fault. But I was misled. And Tesla corporate didn't advise their sales staff that this upgrade was going to be taking place within 6 months, within 8 months, within a year. They should have been advised, and they weren't. So I'm angry, and I'm mad. So I call up, and I talk to a customer sales rep, not a sales rep, a customer service rep, and I say, look, I asked you guys about this. You guys told me no. I'm really mad here. And so the lady was looking at my file and she goes, wow, yeah, you were supposed to have a 12 kilowatt system. She goes, I'm kind of rooting for you here because your system is nowhere near what the original proposal was. So she goes, this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to escalate this. I'm going to have someone listen to those audio files, those phone calls that you had with Pedro. And if we hear that in there, they're probably going to help you out. So of course I'm like, oh, that's great. She's like, I can't promise anything, like she kind of made that point. Like, I can't promise anything, I'm like the lower manager here, but we're going to see what we can do. And of course, I'm thinking back to those YouTube videos. This is Tesla. They're going to have my back. They're going to be there for me. And they're going to listen to those phone calls and say, yeah, we kind of dropped the ball, with everything with COVID. None of us were on our game. This guy got kind of screwed. He relied on us to tell him and inform him of certain things. He wasn't able to make an informed decision because of us dropping the ball. And we should make it right. We should make him whole. And I even offered. I said I will pay the difference on the newer panels. I go, it's got to be $3,000-$4,000 difference per panel. I'll pay the difference. So of course, a few days later, a woman calls me and, she goes, hey. And she's short. She's like, almost like she can't even be bothered to deal with me. Yeah, what's going on? What's going on with what's your problem here? Like, what's the deal? Oh, yeah. Well, did you listen to the phone recordings of me talking to the sales staff? No, I didn't do that. Oh, okay. Well, someone said you were going to do that. Well, I didn't. So what's going on? I explained the situation. She goes, so you want something for nothing? And I'm like, no. And then she goes, look, this is our policy. You made a decision, okay? Just because a new product came out doesn't mean we're going to come out and redo it for you. I said, right, but there's an extenuating circumstance here. So, of course, it became this circle. We just kept running in circles. She would cite policy. I would explain the extenuating circumstance. She would cite policy again. Sir, you're not listening to me. This is the policy. Actually, I listened quite well. You're not listening to me. I've explained that you guys misled me, no matter whether or not it was how unintentional it was. You guys as a company said to me that you weren't planning on upgrading. Well, the sales staff doesn't always get that information, but based on your business model, they do or they should. As a customer, I know, or a potential customer, I know that you guys do releases. No. So then, it started getting heated. And it got to a point where I tried backing us up. I go, look, we're just getting frustrated and angry at each other. I go, let's back up. Let's take a deep breath. Let's approach this from a different angle. And she was like, no. And then, I kind of said, early in the conversation, I said, I don't feel like I should have to hire a lawyer to get my audio recordings and, you know, this and that. And that was another part of the conversation. So she was like, no, we're just going in circles. This is the policy. You know, kind of too bad, so sad. And I'm done. I'm not going any further with this. If you want your phone calls, hire a lawyer. And then that was it. I said goodbye. She said goodbye. I wanted to say some colorful words to her. She was really rude, really unpleasant to deal with. So guys, I have videos on what to do when you fail to find compromise. And you can go to the Better Business Bureau. Now, the Better Business Bureau isn't there to tarnish a company. The Better Business Bureau is to hopefully open up lines of communication with a different department, with someone who's able to actually make a decision. Typically a PR department. Verizon has a great PR department. I had Verizon Fios. I canceled because I was moving. They charged me 3 months for a service when I didn't even have the modem. So they told me, the low-end customer service said, we're not refunding you. And then, of course, I got to the PR department. The PR department took a look at it and said, you know, based on your phone calls, based on everything that we're seeing, we stole money from you. We're going to give it back. And they did. They gave it back. And I was able to accomplish that through the Better Business Bureau. So, of course, I've tried that again with Tesla. Well, the person that I dealt with on the phone is the same person I'm dealing with. It's their PR department, apparently. So they've kind of just reiterated, look, this is our stance. I've already explained it to them. We're not going to deal with this. To which I explained, I've also asked in this Better Business Bureau complaint for my audio recordings because I don't feel like I should have to hire a lawyer. You know, I have friends that are lawyers, but, you know, I'm still going to have to pay a fee to have them send a letter. And then, of course, Tesla could ignore that letter, and then I have to spend more money to actually sue for my audio recordings. And this is based on, there's a couple of reasons that Tesla might not be releasing the audio recordings. Is either they don't have them, or they've reviewed them and there's incriminating things. And it's like, look, it doesn't have to be a business relationship like that. If I'm in the right and you're in the wrong, just admit it. Have a little honor and integrity. I'm a veteran. Those are huge words for me. Honor and integrity. You messed up. It's not a big deal. All right, let's fix it. Let's move on, and let's have a good business relationship moving forward. You guys have Starlink coming out. You guys have new vehicles coming out that I could potentially buy. Like, doing something right today does not mean that I'm a Karen that's trying to make your day miserable. That's not what I want. I want Tesla to succeed. I love Tesla, but in this instance, I believe that they're in the wrong. I know that there's going to be tons of people that have opinions on that, but Tesla, it's kind of woken me up as a fanboy, is that Tesla is kind of involved in some shady business practices. You know, there's SolarEnd. I believe their solar panel section is still run by remnants of Solar City. And Solar City was all about getting as many installed. They had policies that made it impossible for customers to find satisfaction. And a lot of people would get tied into these panel deals with Solar City that were, if you look at their reviews prior to Tesla absorbing them, they were abysmal. So I think what Tesla did is they said, we're going to have a department that focuses on the solar roof. The Solar City and can hold us for a while, and they kind of, like I said, they let that kind of fall to the wayside. Moving forward, I don't think I'm going to find resolution, and I've actually noticed some other shady practices. If you watch Rich Rebuilds, you know, he bought a flooded vehicle, and I can understand Tesla not wanting to deal with a flooded vehicle, because you hear flooded vehicle and you're like, hoo, that thing's never going to work right again. But Rich kind of went on to say, like, well, actually, you know, I took a damaged one with front end damage and transferred everything I could over, and it works great. It's just the frame, the only thing that was in water was the frame, and that's all dried out. You know, like so he's saying I should be able to supercharge. Tesla disagrees. He also brings up a friend. I'm going to paraphrase here. I don't know the exact amount he paid. I think it was like $10,000 to $12,000 to get his total Tesla that he bought and rebuilt, recertified, and Tesla said no. So they charged him $12,000 to recertify a couple months later, and that kind of says to me that even Tesla doesn't trust their batteries, where their batteries are going to be exploding from a minor hit down the road, and it's like it really shows that Tesla doesn't have any faith in the battery withholding or basically standing up to even minor impacts. I believe that the front end damage was relatively minor. And they said, oh yeah, we'll recertify it. And then they went on to say, no, you can't use our charging stations due to I don't know whether it was liability or things like that. It was probably the liability end where Tesla legal said, yeah, you don't want to do this. And they made a decision, but they didn't refund him his money, from what I know. That could have changed. So moving on. The other thing is Tesla's supposed to be a nice green company, save the planet, things like that. Well, anytime that you deal with Tesla, I have friends that have been trying to buy a used Model S. The Tesla sales staff is just kind of like, again, this like where they stopped calling me on my panels. They stopped calling them back because they didn't want a new one. He goes, look, I want to use 2016 Model S. Why don't you buy new? So it's kind of like the whole cell phone problem we have with people just every year. They just toss them, right? That's not very green. That's not very sustainable. So Tesla kind of has that business model where, they kept saying to my friend, hey, this is Boston, the Boston area. I believe the Boston office, or it might have been the Natick office. So they were like, hey, buy a new one. He's like, I don't want a new one. I want the used one. And they were just like, okay. And they just never called him back. So here we have this business model where Tesla went from being great, and you remember all their, if you remember all their Tesla stock and like basically demands from the stockholders that Tesla become profitable, which isn't unreasonable. But in order to do that, so what they did with Tesla Energy is they brought everything in-house under one roof. There's no national sales staff anymore. You can't find a sales rep in like, wherever a Tesla station is in like Boston that will sell you a solar roof. Maybe the car people might be pulling double duty. I don't know. But the bottom line is they brought everything in-house. Saved a lot of money. You can see with my experience, when they make mistakes, they're not willing to admit to them. And that's huge for a company. You need to be able to admit mistakes because mistakes are going to happen. It's how you make it right. It's how you make the person whole. And the fact that I'm sitting here, I'm not being unreasonable. I'm just saying, like, look, this is the panel I originally wanted. You guys didn't inform me that you guys were upgrading when I specifically asked. And I even offered to pay the difference on the panel. Now I'm like, no, like now that the lady was so rude, I'm like, no, I want it upgraded for nothing. If you're going to be a jerk. And I'm essentially being treated like a Karen when I don't feel like I'm particularly being unreasonable. And look, there's this whole like extreme where the customer is always right or they're being an unreasonable Karen. There are people in the middle that are just like, hey, you guys messed up. Can you please, can you work with me here? Let's figure it out. And that's not where customer service and big companies are. It's either you're a Karen, this is our policy, deal with it, blah. It's really kind of disgusting behavior in terms of customer service. And then, of course, if you're like a reasonable customer that just kind of takes it on the chin, you're just like, yeah, it's okay that I spent $12,000. I'll buy some solar panels from you guys, and I'll buy some batteries, and I'll buy a few more vehicles, even though that I know I'm going to get it in the chin again down the road if something like this happens again. So it's like, where are we? Well, my wife at least was in the market for a new Model S. Well, now we're disenfranchised with it, especially with seeing how they treat rich for builds. Basically it's almost impossible to get your vehicle serviced. You're in a long waiting line to get it serviced. If you have any type of problems with it, you're without a vehicle. With the solar panel aspect of it, it's like they're not going to inform you properly, especially if you're dealing with the solar panel end, maybe the solar roof. And, it seems like they're willing to do whatever they can to get the sale. And then when, you're dealing with the loan company, too bad, so sad, you don't even deal with us. It's like, that's another big thing is when you're talking about the loan. I had an issue with the loan. I ended up finding the original paperwork where I was actually charged a few thousand more, and my payment was supposed to be $167. It's like $175. And, I brought that up with them. I was like, you guys charged me for the original price. And I actually found the original, and I sent it in. I haven't heard from them. So it's just kind of a bummer because, these people to me were like the cream of the crop. They were my heroes. They're like all electric. They've figured it out. Like, we could have just stayed on gasoline, and now gasoline has a competitor. So to me, it's not about being green. It's about competition. It's about the free market. even though a lot of people, especially libertarians, will argue, well, this isn't really free market. This is the government choosing winners and losers. But no one can disagree that the energy density on batteries has improved. The idea of a power wall the size of a huge air filter system, well, not even a huge air filter system. It's like it's a couple heat pump units, not even. And then you can stack them. They're efficient. Like the idea that could even be done, you didn't need a wall of lead acid batteries. 10, 20 years ago was like, you'd be talking crazy. You know, like, so Tesla's made significant strides in terms of energy density, how they make their batteries. They're, you know, they have had some issues, but they're making it safer. There's upgrades. Another thing that Tesla does is their licensing of software. So you might have bought the vehicle, but the software that controls said vehicle, they remain in control of. And that can be kind of shady because, again, you go to service your vehicle, it's like, well, we don't know what the quality of the parts that you put in. We don't know this, so we're not going to allow you to use our supercharger station. Can you imagine doing maintenance on your gasoline vehicle and basically going to a Shell where you need to fuel up and you're being told, no, you can't charge here. You can't use you can't refuel here. So that's another thing that we've kind of woken up to is with Tesla, if they're going to be able to do something like that, and I have a problem with my vehicle where I have to actually I can't afford the maintenance or the replacement part, I'm going to be without a vehicle, and you know, I'm going to go into the poorhouse to replace it as opposed to just being able to do it myself. You know, that's a huge problem. So that's been another thing. It's like I was even looking at a Cybertruck myself. You remember my video? I really didn't like that truck, but it grew on me. So you know, I saw an up-armored version of it, or there was a video about up-armoring the things, and I kind of fell in love with it. But guys, I'm kind of rambling on. These are some issues that I found with Tesla. Just be careful. Get everything in writing. Everything in Tesla. So if you have a conversation with your sales rep, you've asked for something, follow up with an email, because I didn't do that, and that's where I'm really screwed here. Follow up and say, hey, I just wanted to follow up with you and say, go over what you discussed. I brought up that I didn't like the panels. I brought up that this is what I wanted. You said this. You know, I just want to recap. I just want to recap what we discussed on the phone. Send an email. But that's about it, guys. Those are some of the problems that I found with Tesla on a personal end. And then, of course, this is some of the stuff I'm seeing. And, you know, I really hope Tesla is able to improve upon it. Like, again, I don't want them to fail. I still like Tesla. But as a potential future customer, we're just going to stick with gasoline, especially with our vehicles. We're not going to go electric, especially if GM, like the GM electric's going to come out. But if they're doing any of this charging station crap or an inability to repair, I'm just going to stick with gasoline until forever. Until I'm able to, basically for electric vehicles for me to work or to be an option now is I need to be able to maintain them. I need to be able to fix them. I need to be able to do everything that I can, a right to repair. And if I can't do that, then I'm all set. I'm all done. So I'm Joe with Dissecting DIY. You have a good day.